Starting. Hangout on Air is live. We are live with Fanny Pack Wrestling Podcast.
We're live? No, we're good.
Yes, buenos nachos, amigos. Welcome back to another episode of the Fanny Pack Wrestling Podcast. I am Petey Rave. Here with me is, of course, my friend, my cohort, my partner in crime, none other than DJM, David Jeffrey Majors. How you doing, DJM?
Tea and toast, Fanny Pack fans. It is the Fanny Pack Wrestling Podcast. I'm stuttering through the intro because I didn't have one prepared, but we've got a good show up lined for you. Petey, do me a favor. While I get myself in order, introduce our guests.
First of all, we have one of our returning champions, one of our favorite people on the show, my co-host on the Record Breakers music podcast, the one, the only, Patty McSwag, aka Patrick Swagger. How are you doing, Patty?
I know it's not the music podcast, but it seemed appropriate somehow. So I'm waving this later in the air. I'm doing dandy. Let's talk about some wrestling.
Yes. And who else do we got, DJM?
On this episode, we have a friend of mine from the Frickin' Awesome Network forums. He is the host of the Ruthless Aggression podcast, the one, the only, give it up, Hawkamaniacs, for the one and only Hawkeye Jefferson. Hawk, sir, welcome back to Fanny Pack.
Good evening, Hawkamaniacs. How are we doing, guys?
We are doing good. We're excited because we have a couple of our favorite people on the show. And we're going to talk about something that I'm going to get a chance to share with. So as we've been doing the Awesome series, DJM has been able to kind of teach, I think, me a little bit as well, even though I've been bought in, but teach all of us a little bit of kind of the best of the best in indie wrestling, and partly through his history of his fandom. This time, as kind of my little contribution to the Awesome series, I get to share a little bit of my history in my fandom, and that is with a Major League Wrestling. So, as some of you may know, I am a South Floridian. I'm a resident of Miami, Florida, the 305, as it will. And a South Floridian, oddly enough, you would think I'm a Floridian, and I would have a lot of wrestling at my disposal at any given time throughout the 2000s. Not quite. When ECW ended and WWE was going through its mid-2000s stuff, early mid-2000s stuff, I didn't have much that wasn't, the Big E. I didn't have anything until I discovered on the Sunshine Network a little promotion by the name of Major League Wrestling. I've told the story before that what I saw was familiar. I saw VHS quality footage of wrestling, and Joey Styles was talking, and I was like, I know this. This is familiar. And I started watching it. It was a big part of what I had at my disposal. And of course, now we have an event. Our buddies at the guy Court Bauer still holds the tapes and is still managing the tapes. So they went ahead, Major League Wrestling, they're now a podcast. They went ahead and put on their YouTube a full event, Summer Apocalypse 2K3, with a whole bunch of familiar names. And I have to ask you, DJM, what expectations did you have when I just told you that I was going to have us watch something from Major League Wrestling?
When you told me that it was an MLW show, I was very, very intrigued because this was around the time of the early 2000s. This was after the post-apocalypse of wrestling, where WCW folded, ECW had folded, TNA hadn't really quite gotten off the ground yet, and the indie scene was still only kind of formulating and germinating. Ring of Honor, CZW, Chikara, they were all only just kind of beginning to show some growth. And down in Florida, you had Major League Wrestling. I knew at the time that they had some indie names that I had immediately recognized, and they also had some ECW guys. I knew that Joey Styles had been on the commentary. So that I had thought was cool at the time. And also Satoshi Kojima, strangely enough, was there. I remember when I was only just beginning to get into the indie scene, always reading results about these indie shows, seeing names like Samoa Joe and American Dragon, Amazing Red, and the Maximos, and CM Punk and Raven, who we'll get into later. And strangely, Satoshi Kojima, mixing it up with the likes of Shane Douglas, Steve Corino. It was interesting. It was this weird little mix of the indies and what had then been known as kind of the post ECW.
Yeah.
And
and I have to ask you guys.
I was intrigued. I wanted to see how this turned out.
I'll go with Swagger. What were your expectations? What did you think when you were about to start this up?
So I went in with basically nothing and just watched this match by match from the beginning, not really looking at who I was about to see until a match started. Making a quick note, okay, whoever versus whoever, so I have some sort of organization. I went in knowing nothing. I mean, this is from after I got out of my childhood love of wrestling, which was I sort of started dropping off as WCW sort of failed, and only to have you and Deej get me back into it.
My bad.
It's okay. I forgive you. So there's some familiar names here. Having gone through it, I saw a match, CM Punk and Raven. That's an interesting one to me, just because
I'm gonna talk about that later.
There's things to be said, but from a billing perspective, that is a thing. And there was some old men were in there, and I have mixed feelings about the old man match, which is ever so popular today.
I have to say one thing about all of this.
Mm-hmm.
This was a show in the indies in the early 2000s. So many pleather pants. Oh yes.
The pleather shorts and the pleather pants and
so many
classic indie.
So many pleather pants and so many new metal intros.
Yes.
Like everybody walks onto a fucking Korn song with down-tuned guitars. It's awful.
Yes. Hawk, I have to ask you, what expectations did you have coming into the MLW match? I know you know of Court Bauer and the LAW crew.
Yeah, I was about to say, seen some MLW in the past, not a full show until now. But, I was somewhat familiar with the product, kind of that it's, I don't know, a ECW late era, early ROH era kind of crossbreed promotion style. So I was kind of expecting something along those lines, and well, that's really what we got. So expectations met.
Yes, good to know. And yeah, let's start this off. The first match that you get B-Boy of all people, B-Boy and Nosawa,
who I always described as the more athletic but less charismatic version of Homicide.
Exactly. B-Boy and
teaming
Nosawa.
with Nosawa, wrong guy.
Yes.
Fuck yes, Nosawa.
Yes. Taking on the team of Joel and Jose Maximo, the Maximos, or otherwise known as the SAT, the Spanish Announce Table. One of the best names in wrestling.
Yes. Early 2000s indies. The Maximos and the Spanish Fly, which, by the way, everyone out there, the Spanish Fly was like the more bang for your buck of 2002 and 2003. It was the move. And,
It's also known for a product to give you boners, so...
Yes.
Just put that out there.
All sorts of indie fan service.
All sorts of indie fan service. And I think that what kind of context could we give this match and these guys, DJ?
It's for me, it's just kind of a giant nostalgia trip. Seeing Nosawa, this Japanese wrestler who has his own comedy promotion, is a fairly reputable star in Mexico, got arrested, is a fairly major star in All Japan Pro Wrestling. Got arrested again. For some reason, is ICP's favorite Japanese wrestler. Somehow,
probably because he's been arrested so many times.
Somehow, with ICP, he hasn't been arrested. Strangely enough, and Again, B-boy, fairly athletic, pretty good, rocking the classic indie wrestling pleather shorts, and the Maximos, Joel and Jose. This was just wonderful indie wrestling for its time. Just great.
Yeah. Hawk, what did you think of this match and this event as this started, once it got going?
I really liked this match. It was really fast-paced, really well-worked action. Pretty much the perfect way to open this show, in my opinion. And like DJ was saying, it was a huge nostalgia trip. As a guy that's seen a lot of early 2000s indies, yeah, it was a fun match to watch, definitely.
All this was missing was the SAT's cousin, Amazing Red.
Yeah.
Who I think was in TNA by this time.
Yeah, probably. And they already had a WWE guy, and I imagine they weren't going to be crossing the streams that way. But yeah, it was a fun opening match, a nice little tag team action. Swagger, what did you think of this opening contest and how it got started?
I wasn't in love with the opening, but as it got you see the problem with Japanese wrestlers in American wrestling is usually what they are really, really technically sound, but have a really hard time translating a personality to an American audience. Nosawa does not have that problem. He has more personality, I think, than any Japanese domestic wrestler brought to America to do his thing. The wrestler hair on Los Maximos was intense. They had super wrestler hair, like the sort of slightly mollety, greasy wrestler hair that only a wrestler would wear. I think anyone else would do something else with it.
The Mulletino was strong with them.
Yes, and I will agree. The Spanish Fly is one of the best tag team finishers I've ever seen. I think the comparisons to More Bang for Your Buck are appropriate, and this might actually in some ways be better.
Yeah, it was just a great trip back to some great early 2000s indie wrestling with the pleather shorts, the Spanish Fly, the tag team wrestling,
the hair.
The hair.
Joey Styles on commentary. Joey
Styles on commentary. And the beauty of Joey Styles on commentary back then, there's a reason to be nostalgic about that, because that was just so much fun. He was able. I just want
to make sure you guys all watched the original incarnation of ECW.
Mm-hmm.
Very little, because despite the fact that I live in Pennsylvania and am 3.5 hours from the ECW arena, I also live somewhere that has had awful cable services for years. I've seen glimpses of it. I've seen a lot of those guys shortly after it. I've watched stuff more recently that was from then, but I did not get to see the wonder that was ECW. I knew it existed, but you had to have satellite TV to get it here, because I live in Pennsylvania.
Yeah, I had it on, again, the Sunshine Network at 3 o'clock in the morning. I had hardcore TV, and then of course TNN.
Wow.
Yeah, but yeah, it was the great nostalgic. Hawkeye? You had ECW, I assume, back in the day.
Oh yeah, I've seen fucking absurd amounts of ECW.
Yes, of course.
So you appreciate that Joey Styles was fantastic.
And it's a good thing that Joey Styles was good on commentary on this show, because he was just about the only goddamn thing you could hear through most of it.
Yes. Yeah, you could.
That really hurts when you see CM Punk has the microphone and you want to hear what he has to say.
It was 2003. I get that the video is not going to look great. The Canon 7D was years away from happening. But seriously, get a sound guy, one kid who knows how his soundboard works, and you'd be sad.
This was dark times in the wrestling world.
Just tape a microphone to a stick and pay a hobo to stand outside the ring and just hold it up above.
Honestly, for its time, this was probably one of the better looking indies.
Yes.
Probably about average sounding.
I mean, you could certainly hear the sound effects before the match. Definitely hear those.
Oh my God.
That might have contributed to not be able to hear anything after it, but you can certainly hear those sound effects.
The sound effects that sound like they were created in a freaking Nintendo 64.
And God bless it. But that was 2003. That was.
Oh, how far we've come.
Oh, Windows Movie Maker.
Oh yeah. Moving on to the next match, a singles contest. Interesting pair of guys. It's hard to place now, but guy by the name of Mana. No, not the Mexican rock band. The wrestler. Taking on Richard J. Criado. DJM, are you aware of these guys? These guys? I think it was Mana may have been familiar. But Richard J. Criado, I have a collection of.
I think Mana might have been in a tag team with one of the other members of the Samoan SWAT team. Well, not the Samoan SWAT team. They're cousins. 3-minute warning. Other than that, not really. No.
Yeah, now that I recall, I caught myself looking him up and saw that he hooked up with some of the Samoans, though he's not technically Samoan. But he's Samoan enough. He's close. He comes from some island over there, and he's fat, so it counts.
Well, I wouldn't go so far as to call the brother fat. I mean, he's got a weight problem, but what's he gonna do? He's Samoan. Well, kinda.
Kinda.
He's kinda Samoan. He can half work out then.
And by New Zealand, by Samoan, they mean he's from New Zealand, which is,
exactly.
I mean, it's in the correct corner of the world, but it's probably a 13-hour plane flight away.
You wouldn't want to headbutt him either way.
No, don't.
Never headbutt him.
But yeah, this was a squash that happened.
Yes, and it was kind of it was fun for what it was.
I'll say that as far as Mana goes, nobody really knows where he is, and that's really not that surprising.
Yeah.
He had a lot of anger and energy and a whole lot of skill, and like some of them big guys are amazing technical wrestlers and do really cool things in the ring. This guy was just angry. He was athletic, and he was angry, but he was not much of a wrestler.
Hawk, did you have any thoughts on this match?
I noticed that Joey Styles just did not give a shit during this match. Like, every line of commentary was not at all related to what was happening.
Exactly.
And it was pretty wonderful.
Yes, that's why we love Joey Styles. But moving on to somebody we care about, Jimmy Yang, or Jimmy Yang, if you want to pronounce
Yang
it.
time.
Yang
time, bitches.
Young
Dragon.
Taking on Sanjay Dutt. I will add
the
one
original
note.
player from the Himalaya.
Exactly. This is so again. This is me sharing my experience with independent wrestling, my wrestling fandom. This was the first time I got to experience Sanjay Dutt, and honestly, probably one of the first times anybody got to experience Sanjay Dutt. It's one of the, I think it's listed on his Wikipedia as one of his moments where he kind of really put himself on the map with. Actually, this match, it was on his Wikipedia. It says so, and it was a fun experience, and it's been a long journey with me and Sanjay Dutt. And of course, also another note. I don't know if I knew it before, but this was definitely this might have been the first time I found out that Jimmy Yang was Korean.
Yes, he is. He's Korean American. He was ambiguously Asian in WCW as part of the Young Dragons. At this time, I think Jimmy Yang was working for All Japan Pro Wrestling semi-full time because he did not get picked up in the buyout of WCW, so he went over to Japan and was doing pretty well over there. And then we get to see young Sanjay Dutt. We see young Sanjay Dutt, who is just awesome, and this is probably the match that got him signed by TNA and is part of the X Division. So yeah, I loved everything about this. Jimmy Yang was always a favorite of mine back then, and he was good. Sanjay really showed what he was all about, and this was just great. Hawkeye, Sanjay Dutt and Jimmy Yang.
This actually may have been my favorite match on the show, just because it reminded me so much of something you would see kind of during the glory days of WCW's Cruiserweight division. Just a lot of really fantastic action with some really great spots worked in. And it wasn't just a collection of spots. These were two guys that actually knew how to work the psychology of the match. But I will say one thing. I think Kevin Nash may have been onto something looking at Sanjay at this point, because he was definitely looking just a bit bigger than usual.
Just a little bit bigger.
Yeah,
Sanjay is
that
tremendous.
was definitely the biggest I'd ever seen with Sanjay. So maybe.
Yeah,
It's on the gas.
Swag, what did you think of Sanjay Dutt and Jimmy Young?
So
It's
Sanjay.
Yang.
So every time I see Sanjay Dutt in a thing, I ask myself, why is this guy not on Monday night every week? He is amazing.
Because he was on Thursday nights for a very, very long time.
Which it sounds like you just, once you're there, you never get out, unless you're one of like 3 people who then probably don't really go anywhere when they switch over. He would have I think it just, to me, he would have owned WCW cruiserweights. He would have been like one of the best they had there at that time, and it would have been amazing.
And when TNA did their promotion in India, Ring Ka King, Sanjay almost in no time became their top star. Sanjay, as appropriate as this might seem, was huge in India whenever TNA was going to India.
Yeah.
So yes, of course.
What are the odds?
And
What are the odds?
everyone here knows he's awesome. And
There was
as Kyle's buddy Matthew would always say, Sanjay deserves better, and
Yes.
he
I
always
think
did.
that's what I'm saying. There was at some point there was a tilt-a-whirl something that turned into like a hurricanrana, and it was the most amazing thing ever. And Jimmy Yang gets 100 points for making Sanjay look unbelievably good. I think that it was a really good match of trying to debut someone who had an immense amount of talent and put him with someone who had some experience who could really do it. And
Also, props to Sanjay for dancing to the ring, because he's always had that music that works that way.
Yeah,
He's always had
a
very
beautiful
danceable
moment.
music.
Yeah, he was always a fun guy to kind of watch come into the ring. He was always just.
And he did the sprinkler too, so this was like full on 100% Sanjay Dutt, like on every level.
This is the guy I was friends with, that I friended on MySpace. This was the hilarious dude I friended on MySpace. This was Sanjay Dutt at his best. And yeah, some fantastic action. We go to some cruiserweights too. Now we get into this is what's left over from ECW aspects of this promotion, but not necessarily in a bad way. With Mikey Whipwreck, of course, accompanied by the Sinister Minister, otherwise known as James Mitchell, the one and only.
Or James Vandenberg, if you're a WCW fan.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Taking on Tony Mama Luke, or Tony Luke as he was in TNA for a while because they couldn't get the Tony Mama Luke name.
Tony Luke.
This is ridiculous. Just a couple ECW guys kind of going toe-to-toe.
Did those fans in the crowd get every chant they could out of their system?
Yes.
They were allowed to pretend that they could squint their eyes really hard and pretend it was ECW for a few minutes.
Yes, and it was. I imagine it was a glorious moment for them. I'll go with you, Pat. What did you think of this contest?
I thought the highlight, and it was a super attitude era kind of wrestling match. Like everything was outside the ring, and hardcore in quotes, without being like the bloodbaths that eventually it turned into. It was that. But the announcers made the match. Joey Styles, I understand why you guys speak about him with such reverence. He is one of the best commentators in the biz, and he kind of made this one. The match itself to me was kind of what it was.
They had tagged him to be Jim Ross's replacement, but Vince McMahon decided to be stupid.
Yes, as he is wont to do.
But
as you were saying, Pat.
Like I said, I think the announcing made the match. It was. I have to say, this is the first time I can think of me seeing the Sinister Ministry, even though I've probably seen him somewhere else under some other name, under some similar gimmick. He has maybe the best facial hair I've ever seen anywhere. Like, he's got like pointy eyebrows and a great beard.
It's the eyebrows that does it.
It's amazing. Like, that guy, I wonder what he does in his day-to-day life that allows him to look in such a way.
If I remember correctly, he, and this is so pro wrestling, I actually believe he runs a karaoke bar.
Yes! We gotta go!
What in? I will go there.
Also, Pedro, I believe he's based out of Florida.
What?
That would be hilarious.
Everybody get on an airplane. This is a
pilgrimage
to be made.
We would do some Fanny type wrestling
as we speak.
Road trips. Yes. But yeah, Hawkeye, what were you as impressed about with James Mitchell's eyebrows?
That was actually going to be my big highlight of this match for me, was getting to see Jim Mitchell's eyebrows again. Other than that, it's, like was said a few minutes ago, it was basically just a lot of, hey, we're going to do some brawling, then here's a couple of spots, and here's his fucking eyebrows, and there's the finish. Have fun.
Yeah. Remember ECW?
Yeah, remember ECW? Check these guys out. They were fucking there. Be happy.
Yeah. Yeah. Be happy.
And now we move on from ECW to Jersey All Pro Wrestling.
Yes, Jersey All Pro Wrestling.
No disrespect to Jersey All Pro, though. I like Jersey All Pro.
Exactly. It's just that they have their own style. We have, again, B-Boy doing double duty again. Doing double duty. When you got a guy that can work, you use them. B-Boy teaming up with Monster Mac. Taking on
notably of the Hit Squad.
Yes.
The Hit Squad. Again, so much early 2000s indie nostalgia.
Yeah,
Monster
the Samoan Island Tribe,
Squad.
Ekmo and Samu.
Ekmo and Samu, the Samoan Island Tribe, a.k.a. 3-Minute Warning.
Mm-hmm.
The younger brothers of the Samoan SWAT team.
Yeah. Falls Count Anywhere, and they definitely went everywhere. Well, at least they fairly went around a lot of the places. And they got a little crazy. Yes. They did a lot of brawling. I have to ask you, Hawk, what do you think of this tag team action?
It was fun in a Crash TV style sort of way. Like, it really was just like, here's 4 guys throwing shit at each other. Just enjoy this. And that's, I mean, that was fun for what it was.
That's a lot. You get that a lot with Monster Mac. There's a lot of that.
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean, as soon as I heard, it's like, oh, Monster Mac's in this match? Okay, let's not expect a whole lot. And, and then we got this brawl that was actually somewhat enjoyable. So,
well, he had 3 really talented guys around him.
He did.
So, yeah.
And it was good to see the Samoans on this card, actually, because I always felt they were a team that didn't get the legs under them that they should have in WWE.
Well, they had ended up in WWE at the time where tag team wrestling was dead, and it really hadn't picked up in the indies yet at this time. So they were kind of, excuse the term, on an island in a lot of ways. But yeah, it was great to see those guys too.
Yeah, it was an odd time for them. Pat, what did you think of this melee?
I wouldn't. It was the longest squash match I've ever seen, because there was maybe 8 seconds of total offense between Monster Mac and B-Boy, and like B-Boy's pretty okay, and Monster Mac's a guy who wrestles, who I've not seen before, but now I can tell from everyone he's a guy who wrestles, and the Samoan Island Tribe. A guy who, basically the whole match to me was made by the top rope frog splash through a table, which was freaking terrifying. That guy is, I'm a big dude, and he is me plus one of you, big, and he top roped, and he did not break anyone's neck.
Yes.
Like, I'm pretty sure B-Boy is smaller than me, which is something that I thought was impossible until watching this show. And just the fact that he wasn't broken in two is something to be applauded.
Part of me is hearing Jim Ross. Oh my God, he broke him in half like that.
Yeah.
It was that kind of a moment. The rest of it was just two very large men throwing two much smaller men around an arena, air quotes, around arena.
Yeah. Around the barn of some kind. A very large barn. But yeah, it's some tag team action. Good to see the Samoans do well and kind of have a little fun. But now we move on to we get to share. This is when Petey was aware of the existence of CM Punk. Was made aware of the existence of CM Punk.
Petey Rave, may I?
Yes.
May I, Petey?
Yes, go ahead. Give us some preach.
Raven versus CM Punk, the original epic indie wrestling feud. CM Punk, a man that needs no introduction. In 2003, you could already see everything that he was capable of. The man would get a microphone and would set every arena on fire, especially in MLW, where he was, for all intents and purposes, the top heel, because he was straight edge, which meant he was drug-free, alcohol-free, and better than you.
Yes.
Raven, who this may be the last documented time in the history of wrestling where you could see that he actually gave a shit about something, and it was this feud to make CM Punk, as they say, the guy. It was to put CM Punk on the map. And this crossed over MLW, Full Impact Pro, Ring of Honor, of course, and you got to see CM Punk with his first kind of straight edge disciples, of all people, Nosawa. I don't get that. It's not Nosawa at all.
Yes, so I loved it, and Joey Styles said as much on commentary. He's like, "I seen that guy drunk in a hotel lobby. I was stuck with his tab."
And again, I got more nostalgia out of this, seeing young blonde CM Punk with blonde hair, the classic CM Punk basketball shorts, which y'all don't know nothing about that. You don't know the CM Punk basketball shorts, let me tell you. And again, and when he wasn't completely covered in tattoos, so this was just wonderful, complete with a cameo from a very, very young Chasen Rance as the referee in this match, contested under straight edge rules. This was just everything about this was just wonderful. Punk was in top form, as he always is, and Raven was motivated for once, probably never again. And everything about this was just it was Raven versus CM Punk. Hawkeye, the Raven CM Punk feud. What do you know about it?
Well, I just want to start off by saying one thing, and that is, I'm pretty sure the last time Raven gave a shit was when TNA was like, "We're gonna make you the champion," and then they took it away from him right before national TV.
Yes.
Like now that that's out there, actually, I have seen quite a bit of this feud. Like I was saying earlier, I kind of broke into watching indie wrestling and following it online around this time, and I mean, it's a good thing Raven and Punk knew what the fuck was going on in this match, because Nosawa and Rance did not. Like, they were the two most confused human beings on this card during this match. It was a good gimmick though for the match, playing up the whole, "Oh, we're not gonna do the hardcore shit," and then Punk's like beating Raven's nuts in through the whole thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was fun for what it was, but I think it kind of got dragged down by the fact that like half the dudes out there are just like, "What the fuck do I do?"
Yeah.
I loved the finish though. The finish was wonderful.
The finish was fantastic, and Joey Styles
selling it. And I quote, "I haven't seen the heel referee I pulled my shoulder at 2.5 in years." That just
I lost
killed me. That killed me.
Yes. That was beautiful. Swag, what was your reaction to that and this whole match?
The heel referee finish. There's something really fun about that just because it's such a stupid gimmick, but it's so good.
When you see Raven and CM Punk pull that off, you're just like, oh well, yeah, of course they can do that. It's CM Punk and Raven, of course they can pull that off.
My biggest complaint, and maybe it was because the audio was so bad, is the fans suck. Yeah. Like these were like, as in the words of the immortal Rick Foster, who's been on the show many times, this is a total like Cheeto muncher.
This was the post ECW crowd.
Yeah, they were so bad.
Yeah. I do want to say
ECW anymore, and they were just eager to just get themselves over. Kind of like the one night stand crowds.
How perfect is it that CM Punk was there as a heel?
Oh, he was.
How perfect was
living in it?
Yeah, how perfect was it that he tried to get a fan kicked out for drinking a beer in the front row before the match? Get him out of here!
It's true. Nobody. I love the moment. Like part of the straight edge rules. Nobody in the building was allowed to consume alcohol or drugs.
Yeah. I will say I've not seen a ton of like the super heel Punk where he is trying to infuriate everyone, and he's really, really good at it. Like it's better at it than almost anyone.
There's some great highlight reels.
It's so brutal of him just being like, I'm better than you, and
he was at his worst in MLW. He was at his absolute worst.
Like I prefer him how he sort of became kind of this anti-hero character, and just being, fan loved and everything. But he's really, really good at this. And Raven still had it in 2003. Like he still had it. He still had gas in the tank. He could still have a good match, and this was.
Yeah, that's why it's funny. Remembering this was one of the big reasons. Like anybody that would complain about the fact that, in the light of WWE being under scrutiny for drugs, that they would make this straight edge guy heel. I would always think, well, it's because he's one of the best heels they've got on their roster.
He was
one of the best at it.
The best
heel. Like he's just the best at it. That's just why. I mean, yes. They're also really fond of steroids in that company, and they've only reluctantly been cracking down on it. But still, like, they used him as a heel because he was so goddamn good at it. And
this just reminded me of what I saw with MLW and IWA Mid-South at just how good Punk was. And sometime in Ring of Honor before he became the indie god, where he was just so hated, and it was wonderful, just wonderful.
Yeah, it was just so beautiful.
Like he managed to get the heat of the crowd and somehow get the heat of the entire town around him, who were not watching the match, but they hated Punk in that moment.
Yes. Oh.
I feel like I've been talking about CM Punk for a decade.
For like a decade?
Now. Yeah.
Yeah.
Possibly 11 years since 2003 when this came out.
Yes.
2K3 back when that was cool, because that was a good idea. 2K3.
Well, ESPN and NFL 2K5, still the best football video game ever. Random thing. But, I mean, we could go on forever about this match. It was a fantastic. It was a good match, but these are fantastic people in a good match, and a little bit of confusing, but it was fun. Either way, but we can move on. Shenanigans and whatnot. Moving on to, I'm going to finally get to this moment because as we've done when we talked about WCW before, DJM has had a chance to talk about one of his favorite guys, Glacier. We've had plenty of time to talk about him. I'm going to get to talk about one of my favorite guys. I don't know if I've done it before, but hell, I'm going to do it now. I'm going to talk about one of my favorite WCW guys ever, and that is none other than Norman freaking Smiley.
Yes.
The greatest WCW hardcore champion of all time.
Screaming Norman, baby.
Screaming Norman was fantastic.
To this day, I still occasionally break out the quote, "A win is a 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 win." Norman Smiley was my guy in WCW so much, so many times. There was, a couple of guys like Lashley, Chris Jericho in his early days. I mean, throughout all his career, but Norman Smiley was one of my guys, and I loved him. He was in a mixed tag match. I don't know if this is really the best match for being able to discuss Norman Smiley, but hey, he was in a mixed tag match with G.I. Ho taking on Michael Shane.
We're not going to go there.
We were talking about taking on Michael Shane, who some might know also as Matt Bentley, or thankfully briefly as Manic.
He was Manic too?
Yeah, for like a
he was in
minute.
that for a minute too long probably. And accompanied to the ring by Francine. Michael at the time being Michael Shane. I think kind of giving you that first I'm gonna imitate Shawn Michaels gimmick years before the Young Bucks did,
or
Michael
Dolph
Shane
Ziggler.
or Dolph Ziggler.
The difference is if you're imitating Shawn Michaels in 2014, it's kind of retro because it's like 20 years on from then. Doing it in 2003, it was basically like, I am not creative enough to come up with a character, so I'm going to be this guy who is constantly injured on Monday night.
Yeah.
I'm gonna steal my
who's my
cousin's
cousin?
gimmick.
Yeah, I'm gonna steal my
That's
cousin's
right,
gimmick.
He was Sean's cousin. He is Sean's
And
cousin.
he also trains him. He also was trained by him. But yeah, I mean, this match is probably not the best match in the world, or not even close to being really a good match. But let's just talk about the people in it and how much we love Norman Smiley and how actually pretty good Michael Shane was back in the day and Matt Bentley was throughout his career. Deej, I don't know, do you have any context of the kind of these guys and how much you loved Norman Smiley as much as I did?
I genuinely loved Screamin' Norman as WCW Hardcore Champion. I did not much care for the Big Wiggle, but his run as Hardcore Champion was pretty much gold.
Yes.
And I enjoyed Norman Smiley more as the cowardly screaming Hardcore Champion than I ever did as anything else. And this was very entertaining all around. Seeing Matt Bentleying it up as he did back in 2003, or Michael Shane, because it was all right. This was okay. Francine and G.I. Ho, she was awful. Just let me tell you, she was awful. They didn't do much of significance, but overall this was okay.
Yeah. Hawk, what did you think of this contest, and what did you think of Norman Smiley back in the day?
Well, I'll start with Norman Smiley. Actually, I think that the Norman Smiley versus M.I. Smooth I Quit match from Nitro, I think it was, for the hardcore title, might be legitimately one of the funniest wrestling things to ever be done. Just because the whole gimmick of the match was he was trying to quit to intentionally lose the title, and he lost his goddamn voice. Like, so simple, so brilliant. Norman sold it well. If you haven't seen it, I'm sure it's on YouTube. But this match sucked. I mean, just sucked.
I was trying to be nice.
I got up and I made macaroni and cheese during this match because it sucked. And I'm not going to lie, guys, the whole aspect of man-on-woman violence kind of makes me uncomfortable.
Yeah. That it was okay. It was okay that Norman Smiley
was a different time.
simulating.
It was a different time, guys. It was a different time.
I mean, I'm a huge NFL fan, but don't show me a man hitting a woman. That's all I'm saying.
Exactly.
It was a different time.
Yeah,
I will be the one to defend. You can have a really good intergender match. They exist. This was not it. This was just some girls whose job was normally to be pretty and walk next to the ring, and they threw them in the ring. And
Kimberly versus JT Dunn.
This is
fantastic.
Exactly.
Sarah
it can be done.
Castagnoli, fantastic.
Yes, with the girls, fight
This is
back.
not going to be it.
This was fucking.
Yeah, no.
My words were, "This is a fucking shitstorm. Fuck this match." That was my notes.
This existed specifically so that they could do the, oh my God, Michael Shane is speeding up GI Ho, oh my
Yeah.
God, Moral Event Horizon, but nobody cared.
I do
Nobody
fondly
cared.
remember Norman Smiley though from WCW. He just he managed to look very generic and yet be incredibly memorable.
Yes, and the hesitation scoop slam is always amazing, at least to me. The hesitation scoop slam is always just that beautiful move that's just like, and he has a wonderful accent. But enough about my crush on Norman Smiley. Let's move on to a singles contest. This, as we talked about before, another one of those young lions taking on a skilled veteran to kind of put the young guy on the map. You had Homicide. I guess this was kind of a continuation of his Young Lions challenge to kind of give himself a permanent spot on the MLW roster, taking on Jerry Lynn. This, I think, was post. Was this post his little minuscule WWE run, Deej?
I think it was.
Yeah. These are a couple of guys.
2000's time was really kind of a blur, but I think this was post his run and before he ended up in TNA.
Yeah, he was in WWF in 2001, so...
Yes.
Right after.
Yeah, this is right after. And this was actually a pretty fun match, and actually it worked for me. I don't know. Let's go, Patrick. What did you think of this contest between these two guys?
So the only recent memory Jerry Lynn match I've seen was from Chikara King of Trios a couple of years ago, where he was on his farewell tour, which he probably didn't farewell because that's what wrestlers never retire. But like I knew of him in the sense that he was big in ECW and a guy that at least as of a few years ago was considered kind of a legend. And Homicide was a guy I had heard about, but I'm not sure I've seen a match with him. So it was kind of like, oh, I get to see this Jerry Lynn guy who I've, seen a little, and this Homicide guy who I've heard about. So it ended up being kind of what you would expect, the wily veteran, and more sinister minister, obviously, rocking the facial hair. You get the wily veteran and the young upstart who, basically is all heart the whole way in through the match.
And I just have to say, it was really weird seeing Homicide as the young guy showing heart, because for so long he's been the Puerto Rican strong style thug. Seeing him as anything different is just weird.
Yeah, not seeing him throw this up was weird in and of itself. Like not seeing him walk around going like like the LAX thing was weird and all in and all of itself. But yeah, seeing him as a young lion was weird. Hawk, what did you think of this contest?
I really liked this match right up until the finish. Like they worked the psychology of it incredibly well with the whole story of Side kind of trying to prove his worth against the wily veteran in Lynn. And they did a really spectacular match, but I really hate the idea of doing all of these higher impact spots towards the end and them being near falls, and then all of a sudden, oh, roll up. That's the end.
The most devastating move in wrestling. More devastating than the burning hammer.
Nothing is more devastating than the goddamn roll up.
It's
the fruit roll up. Yeah. If it's Razor Ramon Hard Guy in Japan, it would be the fruit roll up.
Boo!
That deserved a boo.
Boo this man.
Well, I'll leave the gay jokes to Jerry Lawler later on.
Oh, God.
But yeah, Homicide versus Jerry Lynn. Yeah, the finish was a little bit disappointing. I was like waiting. It was like I knew it was going to be Homicide winning just because of how I was leading up, but I figured it was gonna be he pulls out the Gringo Killer. He whoops him around, pulls out the Gringo Killer, and that would be it.
Or as it was actually known, the Cop Killer.
Yeah.
Which, let's be honest, is Gringo Killer that much of an improvement in terms of that name?
If you think about the typical wrestling audience, you know, the stereotype, the Cheeto Munchers, if you will, it's way different. I don't know how much y'all watch this program called The News, but some crazy guy shot a cop in Pennsylvania, and it is crazy here how like pro police people are. You know, not what a month and a half
Fuck
after all that shit in Ferguson. Like, how it all flips over in an afternoon.
Aren't exactly the biggest fans of the police.
I have what we would call mixed feelings, which I think is the appropriate response.
Yeah.
But
this show went weird places in a hurry, you guys.
Yes.
Real shit.
Real shit. Real talk. Yeah.
Well then, let's go from the real talk and let's reel it back in, shall we, and get back to the wrestling.
Yeah.
Next match on the show kind of escapes me. Was it the Extreme Horsemen? I think the Extreme Horsemen.
It was a contest for the Global Tag Crown Championships, the Tag Team Championships of Major League Wrestling. It was the Extreme Horsemen defending against Steve Williams and his tag team partner at the time. He was doing the let me try to get the right tag team partner to finally get these championships thing. At this point, at this point it was the Sandman, because why not the Sandman?
Because reasons.
Because
it seems like the right crowd for it.
And of course, the Extreme Horsemen, 2/3 of the Extreme Horsemen exactly. This is the tag team portion. Steve Corino barred from ringside, as is wont to do. It was C.W. Anderson, the Enforcer C.W. Anderson, and the Blue Chipper Simon Diamond, with the signature pose. You gotta have the flourish at the beginning, and the slow motion. Flourish.
Because pro wrestling.
And of course, C.W. Anderson, the Extreme Horsemen taking out Steve Williams and the Sandman. Now, what context?
And hey, we got the Sandman's entrance.
Yes, the Sandman's entrance. Though it was weird seeing coming out from the actual entrance.
And then going into the crowd.
Then going into the crowd. He usually just wandered in from somewhere.
he just stumbles in from somewhere. Normally.
It's like, oh, fuck, slam match now. Like, you can almost imagine any time in ECW where it was his entrance time, that it was like he's just in there, like, oh fuck,
son of a bitch, I gotta get inside.
They're playing the song. Shit.
And of course he was playing it up. He had his MLW shirt on because he's a company guy. He's a company guy. He's all business. And he was doing his Sandman thing. I'll ask you, Hawk, what was your impression of... I know you had some fun comments to me on Skype. What were your impressions, the entrance, the match?
Yeah. Well, as I was saying to you on Skype, I love that moment where, like, Sandman cracks a beer, like, wide open, right about fucking waist level, and it splatters everywhere, and then you realize there's two, like, 5-year-old children standing right there. And he just Budweisered all over their faces. And then, like, there's the moment again that you actually brought, that we actually were talking about as well, where he's standing on the fucking guardrail and he's got a beer in hand, and he looks down at the guy next to him and goes, "How old are you?" And you hear the guy say, like, 19? And he's like, "How old are you?" 20? Come on, man! No!
Like, show me some ID.
Yeah, he just dumps it on an old guy and continues on with the evening.
It's like, I know, he literally goes, like, how old are you? How old are you? Let me see some ID.
Yeah, let me see some ID. Sandman was the part of this. Actually, though, I'm glad, because I watched the show today to make sure, it was fresh in my head. And one thing that actually ties into something that we did for the Ruthless Aggression podcast, we stayed up late and tweeted a ECW pay-per-view. And one thing that struck me on that show was, I really wish the Extreme Horsemen had gone further. And then here they were. So I was pretty stoked to see that. But overall, this match was like, I had to make sure it was going at normal speed on the player, because it was Was not the quickest of paces for this show.
They had to kind of go at Sandman and Dr. Steve Williams' pace, more or less. Yeah, pretty much. And I did have the
wrestling young folks.
Yeah, I did have another fun.
I gotta ask, your thoughts on the Sandman, and all that encompasses him.
He has the best entrance, period. He does what Steve Austin did in WWF, but with like $1 million behind him. He does for the price of a 12-pack of Budweiser and a fucking Metallica song. And it's just as good. And it's way, yeah, and a pack of cheap cigarettes. He does it. It's way more fuck the man than Steve Austin could ever be. He does it so much better, and it's kind of amazing. And I mean, at this point, I'm guessing he was probably always kind of a fat old man of a wrestler.
Yeah.
But he had the best entrance ever, so everybody loved him.
Yeah.
And he always had his spots. Like
he's
Rolling Rock, the Heineken Rana, my personal favorite, the White Russian leg sweep.
The White Russian leg sweep.
Which is you didn't get to see it, Patrick, but for those for those that haven't seen it, it's a Russian leg sweep, except he has the Singapore cane in his hand, you know. So it is the White Russian.
He's driving it down on their throat.
Yes, and it is always a fun moment, and it's always cool kind of seeing the Extreme Horsemen. Because these were the guys that I remembered watching. They were the stable. And this is something I don't really remember a lot of this stuff because it was 10 years ago. But the stuff I did remember was these guys, and ultimately the match that I actually give you guys as extra credit homework. That a lot of the main event of this event was leading up to, which is War Games and the Extreme Horsemen versus the Funkin' Army and all of that craziness. And those were the things that I definitely remember. CM Punk, Sanjay Dutt, and the Extreme Horsemen, and the Global Tag Crown Championships. And this was kind of taking me back to those times.
Can we just talk about how C.W. Anderson, that is either a professional wrestler name or a guy who works at tractor pulls. And those are the two jobs you can do with the name C.W. Anderson.
Or both.
Pulls, wrestler. Maybe both.
If this were WWF in the mid-'90s, he definitely would have done both.
Yes.
Or he would have been a handyman.
Yes.
He just shows up with a toolbox and cracks people with a wrench.
Yes.
C.W. Anderson, the most dangerous uncle you've ever seen.
Yes. World's most dangerous uncle. Yes. But yeah, and with the bald spot to match, really, like he had the hair to match.
He really was working that Anderson gimmick.
Yes.
Like I could just imagine him backstage. Who wants to shave the patch? Just somebody shave me a fucking circle right up here. I need to look like Arn. Let's do this.
Yes. That was always kind of a fun thing. It's like, really, you just decided you just want to be Arn Anderson, really. That's your thing. He wasn't even a proper Anderson. Like, he wasn't even a proper Anderson. Like, yes, none of them were technically proper Anderson, but he wasn't even part of their, like, fake family.
The only proper Anderson I know is cheerleader Melissa Anderson, so whatever. It's pro wrestling.
Yes.
I wonder if
he wanted to make it like the Storm. But you had something to say, Hawk?
Well, no, I was just like, I wonder if the other Andersons are aware of this goon. Like, he's like, I wonder if anybody just
signed. He got signed. He was in the WWE incarnation of ECW for like 2 minutes at least.
That doesn't mean they're aware of him.
I'm saying maybe.
We're talking about a company.
Arn is an agent, so there's a thing.
Yeah.
But it's just like it's the weirdest concept, but there's a lot worse people you could want to be than Arn fucking Anderson. Let's be honest.
Yes. There's definitely a lot worse people you want to be. But yeah, fantastic fun match, and it leads up to kind of the main event that you saw later with the appearance of a mysterious man in a mask.
A Japanese mask.
The Japanese mask, who I think the way Joey Styles sold the idea that it was obviously Steve Corino makes me think that it may have been actually been PJ Walker. It may have actually been PJ Walker, which I got to see.
Wasn't he part of the Extreme Horsemen?
Eventually, yeah, he joined up with the Extreme Horsemen alongside Barry Windham for War Games, the match that came up for War Games. But yeah, the craziness that followed that. But that craziness led up to the craziness of the following match.
Where we got to see the Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels in full 2003 mode with the sunglasses and the cloak and the Ankh cross, just complete full Ring of Honor gimmick Christopher Daniels Fallen Angel, accompanied by James Mitchell. And this was just this was another indie nostalgia moment for me, seeing pure original Fallen Angel Christopher Daniels. It was wonderful. And he took on Sabu, the suicidal, homicidal, genocidal, death-defying...
The botch king of the Midwest.
Yeah, from Bombay, Michigan, Sabu. And Daniels did the best he could.
Yeah, it's not an early 2000s indie wrestling show without a Sabu wrestling against medical advice.
or it's not a 2000 indie show without Christopher Daniels either.
Yeah, so you get both in this match. And Hawk, what was your impression of this match and seeing Chris Daniels and Sabu?
I love that the idea of this match was who can stab their opponent and pin them soonest. Like,
yes.
It was a spike match.
Yeah, it's such a fun concept, but I gotta say, like I said earlier, I've seen a shitload of ECW, and I honestly can say Bill Alfonso is one of the most annoying human beings ever put on this earth.
I don't know what you mean, Daddy.
But it was fantastic in this match when he's just looking at the camera. Sabu's got 35 stitches in his arm, and he's wrestling in a spike match.
It's like
what a fantastic way to sell this thing. Like, just have the toothless guy screaming about it.
Yes, and
of course,
throughout the whole match.
The whistle.
The whistle. Throughout the whole match, you can hear them. They're just trying to wrestle each other, and all Bill says is like, Sabu! Get the spike!
Get the spike!
Spike.
And how does it finish? How does it end? Sabu spikes him in the eye. That proves that Bill Alfonso is the coach of champions here.
Exactly.
That's the All Madden trophy on this show.
Right down the middle, and of course, Bill Alfonso always right down the middle. And he spikes him, to a submission.
Yeah. Although, to be fair, I would probably give up a fight if you spiked me in the goddamn eye, too.
It's like, all right, I'm done.
Yeah.
Okay, this is it. I have to.
And Daniel said, you know what? Fuck this. I'm giving Gabe a call. Fuck this.
You clearly want the win more than I do if you're willing to stab me in the eye for it.
I'm going to call Gabe. I'm getting the fuck out of here.
I'm getting the fuck out of Florida. At least for now, until I have to come back to Fort Lauderdale for the next event. But yeah, Pat, what was your impression of? I don't know if you've seen Sabu before.
Little bits of him here and there. I mean, how many like what is with Middle Eastern professional wrestler gimmicks? Like, has anyone ever done it right, or do they always end up being like kind of almost offensive? Like, or is that kind of the point?
In the case of Sabu,
I mean, the motherfucker's from the UP. Like, he ain't Saudi Arabian even a little.
I believe he's actually from
Escanaba. Escanaba. I looked it up on Wikipedia.
Is it Escanaba? I know he's from somewhere in Michigan.
He's a Youper.
He's a Youper? All right, good to know.
Actually,
which is basically the polar opposite of Saudi Arabia.
Right. But his uncle, the Sheik, was Lebanese. And Sabu's gimmick never really had much to do with the fact that he was Lebanese. It always just had to do with the fact that he was absolutely out of his fucking mind more than anything.
I want to point out that if you want to see the Sabu gimmick at an almost offensive level, just go back and watch him like on the few weeks that he was in WCW, when like the Sheik shows up with a fucking scimitar to be his manager, and like Sabu almost impales himself on the scimitar doing a high spot.
Yes.
This is the kind of thing that WCW.
That is the most Sabu thing I've ever heard.
That's so Sabu. But yeah, Sabu back in the day, and of course, seeing Christopher Daniels is kind of at his peak. I don't want to say
not his peak. This was not his peak.
He had many years to come to really rise. I think honestly, he hasn't really dropped off as far as talent at any point to this day.
If there's one guy I would say should be on Monday nights and be a millionaire, it's Christopher Daniels.
Yeah, he has not dropped off. But like seeing him in one of his many absolute fun eras, which was early 2000s, with the full on two fingers to the air, with the ankh and the cloak was absolutely fun. But yeah, Chris Daniels, fun stuff. But moving on to
Petey, you're pretty much gonna have to take this one because I'm just gonna say this right now. I don't think I've said it on Fanny Pack, but I'm sure I've said it elsewhere. I despise Jerry Lawler. So when I saw him on the screen, I pretty much checked out. I despise Jerry Lawler. I don't like Memphis. I don't like Memphis wrestling at all. I can tolerate Terry Funk in small doses. So, yeah, I pretty much checked out of this.
Yes, we had a bounty match. As Steve Corino was barred from the building, the Extreme Horses called out put a bounty on Terry Funk's head. Jerry Lawler, the consummate professional that he is, decided to collect money and deal with his longtime rival all in one shot in a bounty match. Jerry Lawler, Terry Funk. If you know wrestling, you know what to expect here. What did you guys think? I'll start with Patrick. What did you think of this contest? What were your impressions and what were your expectations?
So I don't think I've ever seen Jerry the King Lawler in a ring because he was pretty well retired from wrestling by the time I was watching. He was just the attempt to be the funnier half of Ross King on the mics, and sometimes he was and sometimes he wasn't. He was in pretty admirable shape for a guy who was well into his 50s. I mean, at this point. But I mean, it was two old men beating each other up. I mean, that was the match you're gonna get. I mean, it's kind of the thing they're doing right now with the Attitude Era guys in the Indies. Just two old men beating each other up.
Yeah, not much more to it than that. Hawk, what were your impressions?
Well, as I'm sure, I think I've mentioned it on this show. I know I've talked about it on one of the multitude of other fucking shows I've done. But I grew up on Memphis wrestling. It's actually one of my first introductions to the concept of pro wrestling was Saturday afternoon on the local NBC affiliate out of Memphis. So to see fucking full-on evil Jerry Lawler trying to blind Terry Funk here was kind of a treat for me, in all honesty. There's really not much more to say about this match. Like, it really was just two fucking old dudes wailing on each other. And for a fan of that old school sort of Memphis style, if only because that's what I grew up with, it wasn't horrible, but it's definitely not. Like, I would have been pissed if I paid to see it. That's what I'm getting at.
And which a bunch of people did pay to see it at the event. But it did kind of just it was exactly that, just two old guys beating up on each other, and it established something. I think a lot of it just established motivation for the match to come after it in Fort Lauderdale. In retrospect, it was right nearby me at War Games, and it was kind of a
and there was
match.
No one from WCW pissed off about them using War Games and two rings and the cage around it, and I'm just like, didn't I see the Ultimate Warrior make a brief comeback jumping through one of these a couple of years ago?
Yeah, yeah. And I know I gave it to you guys as kind of extra credit work, but did you guys get the chance to see the War Games match?
Fuck yeah, I love War
I did
Games
not.
matches.
I did not.
It's all I can say was the ending was kind of hysterical to the War Games match, and what I really want with that whole like having the ropes in the middle is I want to see War Games, but with like I just want Sanjay Dutt in one like launching like guys like that size launching off the ropes across two rings
TNA
With-
did a few of those.
with a bunch of old men in the ring and some guys who are younger and actually can wrestle. It was mostly just let's throw everyone into the side of the cage and hit them with a kendo stick, and I think there was a ladder in there somewhere, and it was what it was.
It was.
I'm really glad that Terry Funk's verbal selling came across in these matches, though, because that's always been a big component in like enjoying a Terry Funk match, at least for me. Like when you got those moments like Lawler raking the barbed wire across Funk's face, he's like, "Oh my goddamn eye! You fucking blinded me, you son of a bitch!" Like that's what makes that match a little bit more fun.
Yeah, them yelling at each other and refusing to be friends, and then like the only idea of them settling things is they got to teach these young kids a lesson. It's like it was fun for what it is, but like yeah, I'm not fond of Jerry Lawler either, and it's like I appreciate that he was willing to go to these events and be at these promotions to kind of promote to help them out, but.
I just
Well,
assumed
fun.
he was currently at that very moment fighting with Vince McMahon, so he was in the doghouse and doing other things. That's my assumption. He was in a
Possibly.
fight with his boss.
Yeah, possibly. I don't
Fuck
think.
you! I'm gonna go beat up. Fuck you! I'm gonna go beat up Terry Funk.
Yeah. And I have to say, I'll have to ask you guys. At the end of the day, what was your impression of kind of this event overall? I'll go with Patrick. What was your impression of the event overall?
There was some good in it. There was some not so good in it. It was firmly in the Attitude Era in some ways, like that stupid intergender match. Fuck that. And there was some stuff that was super that time, but there was a lot of really young talent and a lot of not yet old men talent. Like now that they're old and broken and you can't really watch them wrestle. But there was a lot of guys that 10 years ago still had a little gas left in the tank. And there was, and the fact, here's the thing, it's on YouTube. Even if you skip through it and just watch the good matches, you'll have a good time for a little bit.
Yeah,
There's a couple of good ones there.
It's kind of cool, kind of taking that trip. The fact that they actually put this up on YouTube for free.
I don't understand if you've got an 11-year-old wrestling catalog, 11 years old, and you are not going to get paid huge money for it, just throw it all up on YouTube. Like
they might
seriously.
be doing. I think that's what a sign of what they're doing. They just kind of throw it up there. They're probably getting ready to kind of prepare for it. They had
if you own it, you can theoretically monetize it. You won't make a ton off of it, but all it's doing is collecting dust somewhere. Like, throw all this stuff up there to be seen, especially like to all the indies that have all this old footage sitting around. Like, what good is it doing? Like, people love this stuff. That's why there's how many old TV shows and movies and stuff uploaded to various corners of the internet.
Mm-hmm. Hawk, what did you think of this event overall?
Yeah, it was a solid middle of the road show. There was a lot of stuff that really was enjoyable, but overall, like I said at the beginning of the show, it was kind of a mix between late era ECW and early ROH, and I think that that kind of struggled to find where they wanted to be as a company, because a lot of the booking choices, and I'm saying this entirely out of context, but it seemed like a lot of the storyline on the show, unless it was carried over from elsewhere, was kind of like, here's some shit happening, like stick something, fuck. And overall, though, I enjoyed more of it than I disliked. It's probably the best show that I've reviewed for you guys, so kudos on that.
Yes.
It twart no CZW. That's all I'm saying.
Which makes you think that we've been doing
CZW.
doing you a bit of an injustice in having you on the show. So we might have to. But then again, you've already seen all the awesome, so that's the tough part. You've already seen all the awesome, so all the stuff.
I'm always down to watch awful wrestling. I've fucking the last 2 weekends in a row.
This is the awesome series. I am making a vow to show people good wrestling. Damn it!
No, what I'm saying
I'm gonna watch good wrestling.
You're saying I've seen all the awesome already, goddammit. So what I'm saying is don't ever feel bad about making me watch bad wrestling if you guys ever have me back. Because, like, you're talking to a guy that's literally starting a show based on WCW Nitro in a few weeks. Like, Jesus Christ, if that's not masochism, I don't know what is.
And by the way, I am going to be on when the Blood Runs Cold vignettes start.
Oh, definitely. I've actually been watching, like, just the WCW on my own in preparation for the show. And the Blood Runs Cold vignettes have started on the timeline that I'm watching currently. And it's really fucking impressive that they ran them for like 9 months with no explanation. It's like,
this is the beauty of it.
Yeah, like every week on every show, a change is coming. Blood runs cold. Soon. And it's like, nope, no fucking glacier. 9 months.
Yes. Oh my God. Yeah, those are some memories. Those are some memories. But yeah, Deej. This was my opportunity to kind of share a little bit of my wrestling history. Not so much exactly awesome in the grand scheme of things, but a little bit of myself. And this is basically all I had living in South Florida. What was I have to ask you? What was your impression of kind of what I was able of where I started from? What does it inform you about me?
It was a mixed bag. I will say, in my opinion, not unlike Sanjay Dutt, you deserved better. It was cool to see the CM Punk versus Raven feud in MLW because that's really when it was one of the hotter things going. Seeing young Sanjay and Jimmy Yang, seeing a lot of the younger guys from the indie scene at the time that I really, really liked, seeing Christopher Daniels, James Mitchell, just a lot of these guys that I'm really, really fans of, and just kind of going back to that time where I had really gotten into the indie scene at that point, and just having a little bit of time to relive this was really fun. At the same time, the ECW stuff and the old men later on, just it felt very unnecessary to me because at the time of this show, the wrestling world was already starting to go in a different direction than what ECW was doing, and it felt a bit tacked on, and I'm not surprised that MLW really didn't last very long after.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it was a tough transition point for them. I think if they had recognized they were trying to emphasize that idea of hybrid wrestling and doing the other stuff, but they did kind of rely a little bit on the ECW stuff. But yeah, it was what I had. I think it was good that I was able to get those first impressions of CM Punk. This is the CM Punk I remembered up until he showed up in the WWE because I didn't have ROH. So all I remembered was basketball shorts and blonde hair, and then he showed up, and then it was the tights and the long black hair. But for the longest time, the thought of CM Punk was always the flame boy basketball shorts and the bleached blonde hair and whatnot and the straight absolute turning it up to 150% heel form that he started off with, and that nascent that beautiful raw spark of hatred that he he elicited from the crowd. So, and guys like Sanjay Dutt and guys those guys, and those were always the guys that impressed me even in this. And of course seeing guys like Norman Smiley was cool, and hearing Steve Corino, hearing Joey Styles and seeing Steve Corino was cool because I do enjoy me some Steve Corino even to this day. So seeing some of those guys, hearing Joey Styles.
Do you watch ROH now? Do you watch ROH?
I think I need to get in the habit of doing it. I need to check. I don't have
By
HD
the
now.
way, everybody, ROH is good again. So yeah,
Yes,
It
yes,
go
is
I
back to,
know.
actually.
you can go back to
I am on the I'm on the new streak hype.
you can go
Hashtag.
back to Ring of Honor. Everybody, it's
Yes,
awesome again.
It
yes.
is.
I'm excited about the new streak. It is it's a beautiful thing. But yeah, I will be checking out RHs if I can get the chance. But yeah, I'm glad I got to share this bit of my wrestling fandom history with all of you guys. So. And I am glad you kind of had some fun with it and enjoyed kind of partaking in this. And I'll ask you guys, Pat, what do you have going on the internet that you would like to tell people about?
So I do this music podcast with this guy named Petey, Rave, and a couple of our friends. It's called it's not called Fanny Pack. It's called Record Breakers.
Aha! See?
Yes, DJM did it to me. Where we listen to an album, we talk about it. It's not entirely unlike this, but for music. So
Yes.
we get all kinds of good and bad and weird and wonderful stuff. And if you're a music nerd like the rest of us, it's a good time. You hear a lot of stuff you've never heard before, and sometimes revisit stuff you haven't listened to in a long time. And we have a good time doing it. So check it out. That's kind of it.
Check it
At the
out,
Swagger on
Records
Twitter.
Podcast at the Swagger. Hawk, what do you got going on? I know you got a new podcast to
Yeah.
coming up, and you got some other stuff going on.
Let's see. I've got a lot of stuff. Well, first of all, I'm writing again. Mostly previews for events for a little website known as the Johnson Transcript. So you follow my Twitter at Hawk Jefferson because I post links to that, and that's just easier. There's also the Ruthless Aggression podcast. We've always got something goofy going on the Twitter for that show, which is at Ruthless Podcast. Also on iTunes, Stitcher, and Botchamania. Let's see, Up All Nitro is starting in a few weeks, which is going to be my brother and I reviewing WCW from Nitro 1 all the way through to the fucking end. So watch for that mental breakdown to happen anytime soon. Let's
Tag
see,
me
I'm
in whenever
available.
you want, Hawk. Tag me in whenever you want.
Oh, trust me, we're going to be calling upon you probably often. So there's that. I'm available for bookings as if I'm not busy enough. So if you guys want to have like anybody listening within the fucking range of my voice, anybody that needs me for anything, I'm here because I'm a shameless fucking promotion whore. But I think that covers everything.
Yep.
That's it.
At Hawk Jefferson. Yes.
Yeah.
Deej, what do you have going on over at DeltaJulianMike.com?
Well, unlike Hawkeye Jefferson, I openly hate myself, so I don't normally like plugging anything that I do, but you might see me doing a few things for YomaCon at Kobo Center in downtown Detroit in the not-too-distant future. Also, Shooting the Shit with Two Nerdy Black Guys, still going strong on iTunes and at DeltaJulietMike.com, and coming soon, it's a little thing I'm calling Anime League Talking Sports Show Hyperforce Team Go. Stay tuned.
There's a fucking name for you.
Yeah.
DeltaJulietMike.com.
DeltaJulianMike.com. Of course, you can follow the show at FannyPackWP. You can follow me at PD Rave. I'm doing the same old things. Follow the show at FannyPackWP, FannyPackWrestling.com, Rebelli.net. Check us out on iTunes, Stitcher, same places as we always are. Follow us, share us, give us some reviews. Hopefully, give us some reviews on iTunes. Help us kind of get promoted up there. That's it. We're gonna keep doing this thing. Trying to be on a regular basis, so you can catch us here live, hopefully every other Saturday. We'll also have the post up, audio and video form every other Monday. So that's going to be the game plan going on for now. So that's it. Until next time, hasta los huevos.
And fettuccine thee well.
My shit is rigorous.
I gotta go, guys.